Yeah, not today. We are back in. We are back in. It is a serious day, man. Instagram refused me to come back into my own live. Instagram refused me to come back into my own live. But we're not gonna give up, guys. We're gonna come straight back in with Gina. That's for sure. We see you, but mon frère Bernard, ça va au calme. I'm fighting Instagram right now, but we're gonna keep it moving. We're
We're
back.
back.
It literally said connection low. Came back in. They said live not possible. And then I came back in and went back in again.
Oh my days, they're really trying to black us out
Yeah,
today.
man. I don't know what's going on, because for those who have been following us, we've had a perfect, from my side anyway, perfect network. So yeah, we're not gonna get into that. We're not gonna let them waste our time. Right now, let's get straight back into it, of course. So, for those who are just rejoining us, guys, thank you for coming back. It might cut again. We're gonna have to come back in, man. This is how we're flowing.
We'll
For
do
sure.
what we have to do.
No, 100%. We'll work with it. We'll work with it. So literally, so I was talking about your upbringing, and a lot of people might ignorantly be thinking, well, that sounds like a great life. You know, she's had a good, because for so many. Big shout out to my brother Bernard Kier says Julie down. That's Gina Jeans right now. You know, she's in Cape Town, producer, DJ, graphic designer from Namibia. So I hope I've answered your question, Bernard. So right now, I want to actually understand, because a lot of people will say, "Oh man, that doesn't sound like the life that people paint for African children growing up, right?" But actually, not everybody lives the way the media makes it out. You live a life. So when you was growing up in Namibia, before you even get to South Africa, did you have an idea of how people would look, how people's perception of the continent was, as opposed to how you was living?
You know what? Let me tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I was really disconnected from the rest of the world for a very long time, and I say that only because we didn't have internet at home or in our house. Let me say that we didn't have internet at our house. We didn't have cable TV. I think it was more just because my sister and I were very like active and creative. We always had fun somehow. So a lot of the times, like, the information would reach me at a very, very, very late stage, you know, or I would actually have to like wait to go to school. And that's a misconception. It's like all children who go to private schools have a good life, you know. And I'm not saying in any way that my life was bad. It's just one of those, like, you come from a middle-class family, you go to a, you know, obviously a private school where you have rich kids and whatever the case is. So we were not all on the same level.
Yeah.
Maybe the same level of education, but like there was definitely like something, like you could tell there was this division, you know. So when I was able to, especially, and I say at school where there was internet, you know, I would spend time with the internet, but I think I was like, I wasn't really aware of a lot of things. I think if anything, I was trying to be informed of what's cool, what's happening, whose latest music video came out. So and I was a kid, so I'm also not being hard on myself with that, but I wish I had spent that time, you know, trying to educate myself on a lot of things. If it was not history or reading books, I was just sort of trying to play catch up with the rest of the kids, you know.
So in terms of you saying, you know, if it was not history or reading books, what did you know about the rest of the continent? What was the education about the continent growing up? You know, a lot of us do here talk about the fact that we didn't get that you know, Black history education as part of the curriculum, right? Unless you went to a you know, a Black history school or a Black empowerment school, or you was taught this at home, you know, out of school hours. Was this the same case growing up for you?
You know, I really do feel like we just had a standard curriculum, and that was that, you know. And even just in terms of history, you learn world history. We did obviously learn the history of our people. And there were definitely libraries and archives where you could access all the information. But I think the one thing that I do appreciate is even just going back to my mother's village and having the elders, and you sit by the fire and they tell you stories of the land. I think I got more from that than I ever did from school, you know, because it's just experts of certain pivotal moments in history that happened in the country. And I guess even just looking at apartheid in South Africa and the Rwandan history and the Nigeria, like, I just feel like it was nitpick here and there. Guys, just know about the world. Here's your geography and go, you know? So a lot of it was just self-exploration. And that's why I say, like, I regret I spent time trying to play catch up, because I only started to really understand a lot of African history as soon as I left home,
Right.
you know? And for some people, they'll be like, girl, that's late. Not to say I didn't know anything, but to really know roots and how to track back and how to actually understand how the people of our continent moved around, and, you know, where the West or the East African people got together to do trades and all these things. It's just like, so a lot of this information, I feel, wasn't really like packaged in a way that we could really like enjoy it as well. It was always sort of just like slavery and get your, you know, your papers and go to university.
So at what stage would you say you became aware of there is some form of division, there is a certain perception? Because here's the thing, right? It doesn't matter how rich you are, if the rest of your people are poor, you're ultimately poor, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how powerful you are, if your people are not as powerful, you're basically equate to their power. So at what stage did you realize that, man, like, it doesn't matter what kind of life I've led, this is the perception people have of Africa, these are my obstacles? Was it during the time you was in Namibia, or did it begin now when you went to South Africa? Because with the South Africa conversation, we'll get to that part in terms of the differences, but at what point in your life did you feel this difference, that there is a bigger story about Africa out there?
It was definitely when I moved to SA, 100%. Because if you think about it, I had never left home until the age of 18. I had never flown out, never been anywhere else. All I knew was Namibia, you know?
Right.
So as soon as I got and you know, it was scary. Scary in the sense that, one, I was going to be alone, and I had never left the country. And obviously you hear stories of places, and I feel like people like to kind of like rattle you up before, you know, you go off. But I definitely felt, and I say this to my friends here in SA, the first couple of months, I felt my skin color. And it's weird, but it's true. Like back home, I think, like I said, the conversations are sort of just like pushed to the side. There's not a lot of, you know, not saying there's not a lot of activism now, but back in the day, it was sort of like everyone goes about their life. Things are good. Don't rock the boat. You know, when you come here, and South Africa's history is obviously still, you know, at the time it was still very, very raw. A lot of things that was happening, and it was even during the time of World Cup. So yeah, I moved to SA, and there's this atmosphere. It's beautiful. Everyone's like out on the streets, you know, World Cup is in Africa for the first time. So I think once that died down, I was like, okay, I feel awkward. And also just being a model, because I got signed here and I started modeling.
Yeah.
In the industries where it really hit me, I was like, wow, this is really, really how things are, you know?
Give me more details. Break down the awkwardness. Break down the experience when you say that's when you really felt when you felt black, as opposed to how you was when you was in Namibia. Because in Namibia, you know, for those who may not know as well, you know, the people who have remained there, who are not originally Namibians, you know, they still have a very powerful stance in the country, right? So surely you would have felt that. But how different was it in South Africa as opposed to being back home, that you had to really feel it like that?
Yeah. Okay, now let me paint this picture. You know, now I'm alone. I'm alone with my thoughts most of the time. I'm still making new friends. I have access to internet now, like 24/7, in terms of you know, spending a lot of time at school and even just learning from my peers, because one thing that I did do is educate myself on the land. I knew I wasn't back home. So there's
Right.
just certain things that you want to know, things you should not say. And I just feel like out of respect of the people that I was bringing into my life, I felt that was very important. So moving on, and I think it was when I would say I had one job and we were like about 12 girls, and there were only three black models and the rest were people of color, white girls. And I remember the one black girl making a comment and saying, you know, we're not getting the same paycheck. And I was like, no, but we're all here doing the same job. And she's like, no, honey, that's not how it works, you know? And if I even look at the trajectory of me working as a model during the time, a lot of the jobs came from European production companies coming to South Africa to shoot their content and go. So their target market was obviously not black women, you know? Most of the times it was like you're racially ambiguous, if you're in between, if you have like Brazilian features. And obviously in South Africa, you have the Cape Malay, you know, that like, you know, colored, mixed and so forth. So I realized it when I saw one of my colleagues who was, I think, 2 years younger than me. She had a good car, she had her own apartment, and she was modeling full time. And I'm like, I can't even afford, like, once I get paid, that's it.
That's it.
You know, I was obviously doing my best to kind of support myself because I didn't want to put that kind of financial pressure on my parents. So most of the time, if I wasn't sending money home, I was sort of using it to kind of carry myself through the month. But that's when I knew, you know, okay, there's a segregation here, not just in the work, the industry, the fashion industry, but just in general. I mean, you'd feel yourself when you go into a restaurant. It'd just be this unnecessary tension in the air, you know? And when conversations were brought up about race, you could really see people who have been affected by it. I mean, I had friends of mine who students who still lived in informal settlements like Langa and Guguletu, and also I really just started to open my eyes a lot to my environment and my surroundings. And then, you know, it was weird. I would go home and it would sort of be like, I can breathe. And I'm not saying that we didn't have, you know, racial problems back home, but it was definitely different here in South Africa. It's just, you know, and also just being in a country where there are more people, I really felt like, wow, there's a lot of things that I had missed out on. And I obviously started to unlearn and learn a lot of the things when I moved here.
Now, the tension in South Africa has been well documented, man, like just over the years. You know, within the different racial boundaries as well, you know, black with whites. And then, you know, you break down something, you know, a lot of people will be shocked when they hear you say black, then you say colored, because in America, colored is the common black person. But in South Africa, colored, then it's another denomination of a race, right?
It's a whole different racial group.
Are you aware of that situation? Are you aware of the historical background? If someone had to tell you to break it down, would you be able to?
In a way, definitely. But I also have to think of it in the context of like, how would I speak to someone who's from the States? You know, because even when I went to New York and I was telling my friends about like how it is back home, I say, oh, we have colored people that, oh, no, you can't say that. I was like, but that's what, you know, they are called back home. So you sort of have to come to like this neutral, let me speak to you as if I am teaching you something, you know, and
that's
not
okay.
sort of
That's
like,
okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So, oh, wow. And having to explain myself as a Namibian in America.
No, but you know, I think that's one of the things that we kind of find a chore, but it's actually a privilege, because that's one step closer in to be able to now make the conversation next time a lot easier, right? You know, there's a lot of people that are here. A big shout out to my big bro, Alan Yav, who's a Congolese man, very successful, based between South Africa and Congo, of course. So he knows a lot of the things you're talking about for sure. And I'm sure I'm going to get him on a conversation on this platform at some point. You know, and so here's the thing. for somebody who was in Namibia and how you describe South Africa, and there's so many different levels we could talk about racial tensions, right? You know, the recent conversation about xenophobia, and I really was on the side of, you know what, we also have to understand South Africans, what they've gone through and why they will feel the way they feel before we can condemn the actions, right? Right. So you really have to be in that conversation. You have to understand it from your brother and sister's point of view. But how did you then put yourself in a position where it's like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to settle. I have a lot of friends who are in South Africa, some friends who are, you know, really successful in the entertainment industry. There's others who are successful in the health industry, you know, finance industry, and they're not South African. How did you settle and started to just make a move? How did you almost think like, well, I'm still in Africa, this is still enough? And, you know, as we put down there, how did you look within and made it happen?
Oh, yeah. You know what? And I'm just going to start by saying I really had to focus a lot of the energy I was putting out back here. And, you know, and I say that because it's true. We do find ourselves always just kind of paying attention to everything else that's happening, who's doing what, or this person has this, and so forth. But I really felt like once I learned that I had a lot to lose being in the country, that's when my focus shifted from kind of feeling sorry for myself and feeling like, okay, I'm in someone else's country, I can't really do a lot, you know. And I think like the most pivotal moment in my life was actually when I lost my mom in 2017. And even before that, she had always been the voice of just like, remember who you are, and obviously you want to kind of leave your mark, whatever mark it is. I feel like we set goals and we want to be this and be at this level, but essentially it was about those little steps that you were taking towards your goal. So I started focusing on more like targets, getting to certain parts in my life and being happy, genuinely happy, and continuing, not obsessing about this one thing and feeling like a failure if it didn't happen, you know. So after losing my mom, going home, and now kind of being forced to grow up really quickly as well, I had to start thinking in the shoes of an adult. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, what's an adult? And I just mean that in the sense of being really responsible. Because obviously when you still have your parents and you're still studying, this is sort of comfort, you know? So I had to really start changing a lot of my habits as well. You know, I wasn't going out as much, and not to say I was throwing shade at my friends were doing. I just had different priorities, you know. And I thought of myself like, you've come to this country. Do you want to live or do you want to survive? Pick your struggle. Because surviving is, you can do it, but it's just an
everyday struggle.
It's an everyday struggle. Every single day you're thinking, you're watching your back. Oh my goodness, you know. So I definitely wanted to really look at myself also in the music context as a Black woman. And I have this conversation all the time with interviewers. It's like, what is it like well, the English left the building. What does it feel like to be a Black woman in the music industry? And I say it's hard. It's hard, one, because I get this question all the time. And not to say that we shouldn't educate people, but I feel like that's the only narrative you're coming to me with, you know, like, why don't we speak about my creative process, how I use what I have to make the music that I'm making. So a lot of it was really also being able to challenge the conversation and not just being like, oh yes, I'm sitting here, we're having a conversation, great, next interview. I like it when we can have a conversation and you may leave with new information, I may leave with new information. You know, let's just grow together. So looking within, I really looked at myself and I'm just like, I did not come here to survive.
I did not come here to survive. Do you know what's interesting? There's a reason why I asked you that specific question about looking within, because that's a question I can ask Delroy in Jamaica. Sorry if if Delroy is not a typical Jamaican name. You know, I can ask that question in Ghana. I can ask Papi in Congo. You know, I can ask the same question to Declan in the UK. Do you understand? Because it doesn't actually apply to being Black or being white. It just applies to being a person. The reason why I asked you for someone who's on the continent, who's grown up in the continent, who's worked within the continent, is because it is to do with understanding that when you're in the continent, you're not sitting there thinking yourself as a black woman. You're thinking yourself as a woman, right? As a human being. And that's the first thing you're looking at. And that's how you survive. So when you say you go to another country, and that's when you really felt the color of your skin, that's when the conversation becomes something else, right? So when you're talking about changing the narrative and the position that you're in right now, the fact that you are in the continent and you're inspired by the continent, and you're, regardless of whether you're in Namibia or South Africa, you're on the continent and you are an African, where do you get the inspiration? Does your inspiration are you conscious of the fact that this is my black experience, this is my black inspiration, this is my African inspiration, and therefore I need the world to see it? Or do you just go, I'm Gino, this is what I'm about, this is where I'm going, and however way the world wants to take it, let them take it?
I definitely just go with who I am as a person. Because at the end of the day, when I come to perform or do what I have to do, I'm bringing myself. You know, and it's funny because we have this, I'm in this group, this producers group, mainly from Namibia, and we've always been having conversations, and like, our music sounds like it's westernized, it's been inspired by the American sound, and a lot of people start copying the South African sound, and I'm speaking a lot in music because it's obviously my field. And I'm just like, you know what? We only have 12 keys, guys. 12 keys. And it's whatever you do with those 12 keys. You know, I don't like to feel boxed in a specific genre. Of course, we grew up like, I'm going to be a house producer, I'm going to be an R&B producer. And I just feel like when I look at myself, I'm not one-dimensional, I'm not two-dimensional. So I have to sort of bring something new to the table. And growing up, I didn't see women who looked like me in the electronic scene in Namibia. Very, and that's just the ultimate truth. So even when I started my journey, I was just like, but why? I think it starts with questioning, but why aren't there a lot of women doing this? Or why aren't there a lot of people in the scene? Why are there a lot of people who look like me in these scenes, you know? So just, like I said, moving to SA and using sort of the whys and applying it has allowed me to kind of keep creating on honest and authentic level. Now, obviously, my music's not for everyone. Not here like, take my music, it's for you, authentic. But to me, it is. I know where it's coming from, you know. And I think I also used to feel very kind of shy about saying that I'm an electronic producer in a sense, because I think a lot of people think it's techno, you know, it's heavy music, and it's not. So I had to own that, and I had to own that, look, yes, I'm classically trained, and I do have influences from all over, mainly from my country itself. I mean, even from SA, I've been heavily influenced by my mentors and my peers here. I just feel like once you put out your work, you're successful, and you have to believe it in some way or another. Like, I know that the music industry has rules to some extent, and if you obviously want to sell hundreds of thousands of records and you have to have a record label, I just know that's not my reality. It's not my journey, and I've made peace with that. You know, I just feel like there's so much power in being yourself and being able to speak on yourself. If someone comes to you and they're like, tell me about yourself, and you're just like, nah,
then
not me.
You know, that's a long silence. God help me, I never had that much silence when they asked me that about myself.
No, you should do it too.
In fact, you know, so here's the thing, right? If you've been to Paris, you've been to New York, you've traveled outside of the continent, of course.
Yeah.
What have you seen to be the common conversation when it comes to us as a people? Whether you can relate to it or not, but something that you can go, okay, do you know what? This is something I can sit down with my friends, whether they're Caribbean, Black Brazilian, you know, they're Congolese, or you know, African American. A conversation you can all sit down and be like, this is where we are as a people, and this is how we move forward. What would be one of those main topics that you think will come up for you personally?
I have a lot of friends out. I'm going to speak on my travels to the US because I have a lot of friends that side. And,
Yeah,
you know,
fitting.
one thing that we always kind of just, we're able to share our stories and they're not too different. You know, they're not too
Right.
different. That and our struggles as, you know, women, as Black women, especially, it's just, I feel like I immediately connect with a lot of women who look like me just off the bat that we go through certain things, even just in the music industry and even just looking at like not even just traveling to the States, but within Zambia and Zimbabwe and meeting women in music that side and being able to sit at a table and we're taking off in conversation about our struggles, things we face. So a lot of the times I take away that, you know what, as a people, as a Black people, there is a lot of work that, you know, not even that we need to do, but the world kind of just has this, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say something that's like outlandish, but they've been treating us in our respective industries with sort of like the same kind of behavior, you know? And even when I look at someone like Miss Selfie, who is a Zambian DJ, like just speaking to her, and Zambia is rich, you know, it's a rich country. There's just so much like life there. And
Yeah.
even here, I'm like, don't you guys have a lot of Black people in positions,
Yeah.
you know, that creative? And she's like, it's just not the same. Because
Right.
most of the times they're not even the head. They have to report to someone.
This
There's
is
always
this is in
other,
a continent. This isn't a continent we're talking about, Gina. You're
yeah.
breaking out the continent for us. You're not talking about Europe, America. You're talking about the continent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go.
So even when I go to, let's say we go to New York, because I spend a lot of time there, and I speak to artists that I've worked with on record labels, a lot of the times they just have this kind of, there's always someone to report to.
Yeah.
And we don't own a lot of our music. We don't own a lot of our record labels. So I've always taken that, and even just going to Europe and having that same like reporting to sort of just like other heads within record labels. Even though I could be talking to someone that looks like you, it would never really be like it's ours. So I think that's one thing I can take away from those experiences, that we just don't own a lot of our own things.
You
You
know,
know?
and it's important at this point. You know, since you brought the commonality as well with womanhood. A comment was left on my page yesterday. Someone asked a question, and I probably eventually will have them here. But I wanted to clarify. Someone asked a question and said, "Is this a conversation with men, right?" And I said, "No, it's a conversation with Africans." Because
Yeah.
and I have to admit I was quite offended by that question, because it took away from the amazing conversations and the importance of those topics we've had with the last 6 men that have been on here. And you know better than anyone, this is not a last minute addition. I want to make that clear. This is a
Yeah.
conversation that you knew you was going to be a part of this a week ago, and we've
Yeah,
planned with other
exactly.
people to come on.
Exactly.
But it's very, very important to understand that sometimes you don't include people in conversation just because they're of their gender, but actually it's based on the quality of the input in that conversation. Because actually what you're doing now is you're insulting the conversation of equality, you know? And if I put someone in just because they're female, you're insulting the conversation of the level of the conversation. What we're talking about here is, you know, Gina's in this conversation because there was commonality in what we were talking about and what we had to talk about in terms of what these lives are intended for. So I wanted to make that very clear, because we are going to have, you know, I never release the names of our next guest because it takes away from the current guest. We are going to have other guests that are going to be coming back on. So I just wanted to clarify that, because, you know, it gets political on social media.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, of course.
So here's the thing, right? Because Instagram took some of our time away, we're gonna go over for sure. I think it's extremely important for people to understand that while we're here trying to talk about moving back to the continent and also fundraising for the continent, and for many years, and, you know, singing songs for the continent to make Africa a better place,
Yeah.
We also have to understand that Africans are not just people that we look at, oh, look at the black problem, but they're also just human beings who also face everyday issues that we have to consider. Because what tends to happen is people land on a continent and they're looking for the nice, beautiful beaches, or they're looking for the places to go and also fundraise for those kids who live in orphanages. But then when they see everyday issues, they kind of go, oh, no, I was looking for somewhere I can escape these problems. So like, it's very important for people to understand that normal people are living normal lives back home too, right?
Exactly. 100%. 100%. And even when I went to the States and I had a girl ask me, like, you know, what's it like? And typically they would think, you know, it's the savannah land, or you know, how did you get here? I'm just like, we have normal lives back homes, 4 walls, roofs, telecommunication. Like, yes, you know, we educate people, but sometimes I can't help you if you chose ignorance, man. Like, this is different.
Is it frustrating? Is it frustrating?
Yeah, it is frustrating. It's frustrating, but I'm also, like you said, it's something to be proud of. You know, if I can come here and educate you on how beautiful my country is, and you visit it one day and you're like blown away, and I've done my part. It's one thing for us to always be abroad and have conversations of, oh, poor Africa, poor. This is one of the richest, if not the richest continents on the earth. We do have our problems, just like, you know, but I really feel like, you know, and I was having a very interesting conversation with a friend yesterday. It's also how we talk about ourselves.
Yes.
And I say that as Africans, how do we speak of ourselves to other people? And I'm not saying, oh, go there and put up a brave face and smile and say we don't have problems. I just feel like there's also so much good and so much beauty of our continent that we constantly have to put out there. You know, I mean, a lot of European people have come here and taken advantage of what we have here. Why? Question that.
How is that the case? So here's the thing. We you know, it's how we speak about ourselves. When we speak, I'm coming to Namibia, Amma. You know I'm coming to Namibia. That's a promise. That's for sure. So here's the thing, right? When we talk about Africa, and I'm going to have 2 very important people coming on the next couple of days to also touch on this subject. When we talk about Africa, we talk about our stories. There is this umbrella of, if I say, come to Africa, we have sandy beaches. Everybody just assumes every single country has sandy beaches, right? It's just like, you know, and that's just not the case, okay? It's like saying come to Europe and we've got amazing skyline. Not every country in Europe has an amazing skyline. That's just not how to work. How do we now start to break down the fact that we have 54 countries and they all differ in different ways? And if we are allowed to breathe, they can work in unity and create something really beautiful. How do we start to break down the narrative from the continent within, looking out, instead of waiting for all those, instead of waiting for us, diasporans? You know, how you guys back there, you know, what's going on? What do you think that should be happening, and what's already happening?
You know what? And I sort of want to touch on, and yes, we can get political, but I also want to touch on our governments.
Let's go. Let's go. Don't just touch on it. Don't just touch on it. Put on the gloves
We
and go for it.
need more spaces for our youth. There are talented individuals out there who are doing amazing things and unfortunately just don't have the backing. And look, you know, yes, they're funds. They are, you have the British Council, you have the German Embassy in Namibia, and the French Commission doing some work, but I just feel like it's that one-time thing. Why is it a one-time thing? You know, I've seen a lot of people like have support and go off to do amazing things, but I just feel like it's also the responsibility of the government to not only invest in the arts, but invest in the youth in a way that we can start creating our own apps that we actually enjoy using. I mean, look at your phone and tell me how many apps do you have that are from, okay, in my case, African, you know, African made apps that you use, you know, and support. And a lot of the things is we always think that if we're buying from overseas, we're better, or I don't know, you know, there's so many amazing people making locally beautiful crafts, not even crafts, clothes. I mean, look at the Congolese designer who had that 3D fashion show. Are you mad?
And if I remember, yeah.
I just feel like we really need to start looking at what we have here and start obsessing on, you know, of what's happening out there in terms of just like the creative arts. And a lot of us, do go out and come back, you know, and I'm not saying don't go out there and raise your flag out there. We have a lot of amazing African artists all over the world doing things, but I just feel like even when I look at myself as a producer and being able to have to sustain myself in this industry, I just feel like, yes, I'm making music here. I'm not chasing the European side or the American side. If anything, it's for shows or for work, but I do believe that right here on this soil back home in Africa, we can do so much. And you know what, we had a workshop with women who wanted to do music in Zambia last year. That's how I actually ended up there. And we were 5 mentors. We were 5 mentors, and we kind of just had days where not only were we doing practical work in terms of music and teaching them how to DJ, but also teaching them like professional practice, how they can like market themselves and all these things. And it's organizations like Reckless Kazi, which is basically the platform that we were on, where we were able to really kind of connect, and it's still something that is still very new, it's still happening, but it's spaces like that, you know. And yeah, we could have easily gone there and been like, oh, okay, whatever, but the girls and I, even to this day, we're still having conversations of how we can take that further, how we can sort of like reach the rest of the continent, because like women in music, even when I think of back home, it's not really something that's like you're going to make a career out of this. If you're not your DJ Zinclair's or your, you know, you get your black female DJs who are really doing amazing things. But I just feel like women in music in general is something I'm very passionate about. So if I have to sit and DM, that's what I'm going to do. But it doesn't just stop at your talent. You have to give back somehow. You know, I'm not forcing people like, hey, yeah, now you have your millions, go give back. But I just feel like it adds more value to what I'm actually doing, instead of just like, yes, I'm a performer, I DJ, cool, great for me. No, we really have to, you know, lift as we rise. And that's just something that we have to bring back here and then have that mentality moving forward.
You know, man,
what did I do?
Because no. You did what you're supposed to do, which is make a brother think. Because you know, as often as I go on the continent, I really try my best, especially to ride off the back of my career, to go and tap into as many parts of the continent as possible. So when I'm talking to my people, I can at least relate, or if I can't relate, I'm ready to take in and digest. And this is why this conversation is special, right? Lift as we rise, for sure. Now, I want you to talk to me as a diasporan, and many of those who are here, in how we can connect, not just musically, not just in terms of, you know, you work in the music industry, you're also, you know, you're in graphic design, you are also a student, you know, so many things, right? But there are people who are in agriculture. We have my friend Eugene talking about it. There are people who work in finance, you know, there are people who work in the textile industry, and so on and so forth. But as diasporans who, number one, have their own version of what Africa is and how they can relate when they come back home, who have an outlook of what happens when they do come back, how they relate to those who are on ground, right? And those who are also confused about where do I even start? And also those who think, man, look, I've got issues in America with, you know, justice for George Floyd going on, Ahmaud Arbery, and, you know, and the list goes on. And then there are those who are like, well, we've got issues as Cubans and Brazilians, you know. What would you know about that plight? How would you say, as a diaspora, you know, myself and those people that I've listed, how do we connect with someone like you who is on the continent 24/7, also dealing with the situations, not just in your country, also with our brothers and sisters who we stand in solidarity with in South Africa? How do we relate with you? How do we start this conversation? How do we engage?
I think the one thing that's very important is to first educate yourself 100%. You know, I think if you're coming into the conversation, come in it to learn. And one thing I keep saying over and over is just, you have to maintain a learning mindset, you know, because if I'm speaking to you about something that I'm going through in the country, I've experienced it, right? And you may be coming back and I have to kind of use my voice to educate and teach you. And I just feel like, even with the media, and we had the conversation earlier, it's just being on 24/7, having all this information. Obviously, a lot of things get lost within the grapevines, but I definitely feel like it really has to come from trying to educate each other first, and then trying to, you know, and please don't take it away from someone where all they can do is maybe just sign a petition.
Fact.
All they can do is donate the $50 that they have. I just feel like right now, even just looking at the whole situation, it's about pulling the strength together, right? And I'm now speaking about our diaspora, pulling the strength together. Whether it's like, okay, guys, we will set up a Zoom meeting with key people to talk about a situation. We will use our resources. We will try our best to sort of like mobilize what we have. We have to use what we have, you know, and just sort of like really build this community where not only are we giving back, right, in terms of knowledge, information, finances, but we're having ongoing conversations about how we can obviously pull the strength from the people who are out there right now to really enrich our own continent, you know? Because essentially, and I spoke to a friend about this also recently, it's just, I don't want to feel guilty for, you know, going Black Lives Matter and obviously the situation in America. But I know we have our problems here. And I also want to be able to contribute to that, you know, and we shouldn't make people feel guilty for you know, for either not knowing or not being aware. I definitely believe that we are doing what we can, but I'm very aware of my situation and what's happening, not only in South Africa, but also what's happening back home. And it feels like, okay, I don't know where to grab or what to do. But as long as I'm using my voice in the most honest and purest way, however I help, it's worth it. It's so important. Your voice is needed.
No, but certainly, this is not certainly the protest Olympics, and you know, we're out here looking for gold, silver, or bronze. You know, like it's very important to understand that, especially for those people who are right now feeling so passionate. But we all know ourselves. We all know that maybe the week before we weren't as in tune with what's going on or as engaged for whatever reason. We had our own issues going on. It was just indifferent. There was more important things as far as we're concerned. And suddenly this now takes you know, first place. It's very important to understand that this is an ongoing matter. We have to be proactive. And speaking on that, on being proactive, you know, how do we change the conversation of Blackness away from it just always being triggered by aid or you know, an injustice that's been done to us? How do we continue this conversation, this narrative of what Africa would be or the Black experience beyond those two things? And I'm not saying they're not important. I'm talking about reactive versus proactive. A lot of time we react when it comes to the aid situation, or people use aid as a way of painting a narrative of Africa being needy, being poor, always waiting for that bag of rice to drop from the helicopter. And that's been really clothed as a people based on that word aid, right? And secondly, when we talk about injustice, once again, you know, someone gets killed in America, a brother or sister gets killed in America, or someone gets kidnapped, girls get kidnapped in Nigeria, for example. You know, a situation with Ebola happens in Congo, and then these conversations rise to the top. But how do we make sure that we clothe Africa with different subject matters to keep the narrative going that also shows the real side of our continent, away from just the negativities, but also invites people to feel like they're part of something special?
That's such an important question. Oh, it's such a hard question too. And you know what?
It's easy if you give us your honest opinion.
You know what? I was thinking about this a lot because I remember when we started posting about George Floyd, I think there was a whole built up to it. There was just so much happening last week. There was the lady with the dog, and then there was George Floyd, and basically just so much information just started to come out of the woodwork. So I actually had to take time to kind of look for reliable sources to kind of understand what's happening here. And you know what's funny is just like, even here in SA, we have, you know, police brutality, police killing people, and there's a whole campaign running right now. So if we have a situation in the States that happens, or anywhere in the world, that makes us question our our governments, our police forces, and bring that to light, then for me, I just feel like, okay, things are happening, you know, because a lot of the times, and it's sad to say this, but a lot of the times it's only when something's happening elsewhere where we're like, oh, but okay, yeah, now start looking at what's happening here. If this is an opportunity for us to always question our systems and really kind of create a safe environment for people who live here, then we have to do that. It shouldn't just stop at Black Lives Matter. It shouldn't just stop at posting and sharing petitions. It really has to be an act of change. And with an act of change just comes, more good. I would like to believe so, and it's just freaking unlearning bad behaviors and just trying our best to be the best version of ourselves. And it's not going to be perfect. This thing is not going to go away tomorrow also. It's really our actions as human beings. How are we going to unlearn something and contribute? Because with that comes this whole like domino effect of possibly good things happening, man. Our youth also
big shout out to my brother. Oh yeah. Oh no, but I'm coming to you on that one now. So my brother, A-Dot, comedian, one of my favorite comics, man, amazing brother, Nigerian in the UK. I see you. Remy, the DJ. This conversation is definitely needed. I agree. Do what you can with what you have. Big shout out to Bohemian Jollof, Bimby Phillips, Carl Dutch. There's so many amazing people in this conversation. Of course, you did shout out Reckless Kazi as well. A great organization that you're working with. And I wondered, and I see you in Lindewe. I see you all the way in Namibia. I think right now it's about, we've reached that point of conversation now. We've spoken to you in terms of your experiences. We've spoken to you about the, some of the, you're highlighting some of the issues and obstacles we're facing, as well as touching on solutions. I really want to now set us in a mood of homework. Like, listen, these guys are used to it. Every day we have homework. We have to go home. There has to be a point to our conversation. 100%. And we talk about our children. We talk about the future. You've mentioned, Africa is a very young continent, and that's not a joke. It's about we doing our part, but how does the conversation move on to the next section? How do we now have this conversation with the generation that's following? How do we allow them to move it further? What does it look like? I asked myself a question the other day. What conversation am I going to have with my daughter when she's 18 years old? I said, Dad, during that time, I have pictures of us playing and stuff, but what else was you doing? So how do we take this conversation further?
I do really believe that for some people, conversation is not their best or their strongest suit,
Let's go.
I think when I look at, let me just say, like when I look at artists, they use other forms of communicating things. And I know not everyone is well versed in the art world, or, I use my music in a way. And I'm not saying my music is like decoded in a way. I just feel like even when I look at my friend groups, we need to talk more, guys.
Yeah.
We need to talk more. And sorry about that. It's okay for
no problem.
us to sort of like chill and relax. And I'm not saying let's not have a good time, but we need to talk more. We actually have to make it comfortable and okay for us to have uncomfortable conversations. Because if we can grow from that and add value to our lives as we move forward, I think it will make it easier for us to also, like, I don't have children right now, God willing, one day when I do, to be able to sit down and be like, okay, this is who you are. Let's talk about this. How do you feel? And I also look at, and just like kind of going out of context, when I look at mental health and everything, like even if my battery is calling my name, looking at it in a Namibian context, it was hard to have conversations on mental health because it's just something that was like, shh. Why? It's only when we use our voices, you guys, and also we use what we, like I was saying, what we have, your art form. Let's make it okay to have uncomfortable conversations, because if you walk away from that conversation thinking and wanting to change something about whatever it is that you're doing, then the job has been done. And hopefully, you know, I think people should really, really try and not be hard on themselves. Not saying change right now, but if your human nature is to be like, you know, I need to do better. You're doing the things. And I think we should celebrate people for we should celebrate people more for also making the effort, and not necessarily like, well, you're not perfect now, so I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm not going to ride with you, whatever the case is, you know? Yeah, we just need to be so kind to ourselves too.
I'm a big fan of meeting people where they are. You know, I'm extremely big on that, because, you know, that was the basis of when, you know, I set up an organization called Pan-Afro-Link with my South Sudanese brother, Luel Deng, and Ethiopian American brother, Antenna Disu, because it was about meeting everybody where they are, regardless of their situation, understanding their plight, understanding their experiences, and then speaking to them in their language, so we can all sit at the table equally, right? So when you're talking about mental health, that's extremely important, because, of course, it is important to talk about our experience as Black people without forgetting that we're also human beings. So being human beings, we deal with stress, we deal with mental health, we deal with our different experiences, we deal with pressure, we deal with our different levels of education. And when I say different level of education, I don't mean that in terms of level of intelligence. I mean that in terms of how much we're exposed to information, and different types of information. So at this point, when you're talking about, you know, mental health and the pressures, it's very important for people to understand that you are allowed to have started this conversation today. You are allowed to have discovered it today, and you are allowed to ask the questions that you do not know. With your career where you're going, how do you see, you know, being a DJ, being a producer, you know, modeling, and of course also graphic designer? I mean, you are busy. So, like, how do you see yourself aligning that with the conversation that's being had globally now, yourself personally?
Very interesting question. Oh, I love your questions. Hey, woo, I'm thinking on my.
This is our conversation. This is our conversation. Go for it.
You know what? Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, to anyone that's hearing this, it seems like I do a lot, and to some extent I do a lot. But one thing I've learned is to manage my time.
Yes.
And manage my time in the sense that I'm not just doing, but I'm acting. You know, I really feel like if I'm in the position, like right now, to be having this conversation with you, I take part in it. And I think this also comes from not always just wanting to be at the forefront of like fame and all these things. Of course, it comes with being in the industry. I'm not saying I'm famous. Hey, guys, don't come for me. But I'm just saying, obviously, you're in the public eye, and I think a lot of people sort of put you on this pedestal, you know. But one thing that I know for myself in a decision that I've made to myself is, if I'm not contributing, then I just don't feel like I'm doing anything. Because people can press play on the CDJ, people can produce, but how are you giving back? How are you changing, you know, your community in a positive way? And that's obviously where I was saying, like, use what you have. You know, I'm not part of the UN, or I'm not a doctor, or, you know, but I really feel like I'm not less because of where I find myself in the music industry. I have to use my voice to, if it's not to inspire, it's to also just help where I can. It's just those little things of like just changing habits and wanting to be a better human being, you know? So personally, I will play a good set, but I will also have a good conversation, and we will want to, as a community, and I'm thinking of the women in music that I work with, we really want to create safe spaces for us. I mean, women still face like a lot of crap when it comes to the industry. If it's not sexual harassment, there's just so much that is still happening, where we really want to make it a safe space for women to feel that they can come and do this and just be treated equally, you know? So yeah, you have to stand for something in life.
Fact. And best believe you're definitely coming back. This is not the last time we're going to be having these conversations. the fact that, you know, you're touching on womanhood and so many things. And when we talk about Getting for Africa, that's specifically looking at the challenges of COVID-19, but the structure that, you know, that the foundation of this particular campaign is a method that we want to apply to all the issues that you've raised that does affect the continent and globally as well, you know. So before you go, I want you to give us insights into some of the things you reference. So maybe there's a favorite book or a favorite website you go to, or a favorite person you have conversations with that we can have access to online or whatever. That's just to do with understanding more about us as a people, right? Specifically on that too. This is not to say that you have to give us a book that you read us, but just something that you would send people to go to, that you say, it would be good to watch this movie on Namibia or South Africa. It would be good to read this book on blackness, or, you know, do you have anything like that?
You know, I think I'm going to focus on the South because there are great sources out there, great people with a lot of knowledge. And you know, I have to think of like maybe also what's worked for me, but in a sense, like something that I think would be beneficial to people is being able to be still and kind of, and I guess it would be like a diary or a journal. You know, I really haven't got into journaling in a while, and I do have a journal and I write here and there, but I think being still with myself and embracing that I'm alive. You know, we forget, yes, our bodies do the work for us, but there's just so much power in maintaining good health to some extent. You know, like health is wealth. That's just how I feel. And if you can, and then meditating is not for everyone, I completely understand. I just really feel like you have to be able to sit with yourself and maybe just celebrate yourself in the moment. You know, thank yourself, give yourself a pep talk. It's also how you talk to yourself, guys. That's very important. You know, how many times you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, you're so stupid. Those little background noises, voices in the head, they play a big part in how you see yourself in the world. And I just think for me personally, I used to shrink myself. And I just feel like I have to speak to myself with kindness. And I think that's what I mean when you're like being still and just having those moments to yourself to really take in what is happening around you and who you are. I don't know. I mean, that's just
man. You truly look within. You truly look within, and that's
I have the sound bowl. I really don't play with that. Ooh, I have to cleanse.
I feel you. No, that's beautiful, Gina. You have been a breath of fresh air. Thank you for the time, and I know there's so much more we need to talk about. Thank you for your contribution to the campaign as well. It's so important that people realize no matter the walks of life, everybody is an influencer, as we found out today on Blackout Tuesday as well. Guys, just to let you know, tomorrow is a day off for the lives, but you can still go to Getting for Africa to follow all the things that we're doing as part of our campaign as we build up to the festival that's going to be happening, of course, mid-June. I have got a session called Comedy Hour alongside different comedians from across the continent, and great timing. You're clapping. I'm coming for you to get you on that Comedy Hour. So far, we've had Dalisa Chaponda from Malawi, alongside my brother Shea Brown, Nigerian in California. So we've had that conversation. And we've also had a conversation with Prince Abdi and DKB, Prince Abdi from Somalia and DKB from Ghana. And the one that's going to be uploaded is going to be the amazing Carl Joshua and Kube from Zimbabwe and Patrick Salvador from Uganda. We just talk about, you know, what comedians go through, taking on certain subject matters for you to understand that, you know, comedians aren't just funny. They're pretty intelligent people, guys. So check it out on Comedy Hour. Yeah. You know, take that on Comedy Hour on Getting for Africa. I'll keep uploading. Once again, a big shout out to Gina Jeans. Please keep doing what you're doing. We're definitely going to have a part 2 to this conversation. Guys, love yourself, love each other. Don't put yourself under pressure to be part of what we're calling the Protest Olympics. Do what you can. Not everybody needs to go at the forefront and run and protest. Not everybody needs to be shouting, and not everybody needs to post. You know, some of you just need to raise your children right. You know, and that's your protest. So don't feel under pressure to get involved in something that you are not comfortable in doing, and don't let anybody call you out. A big shout out to all my Africans, my Caribbeans, my Brazilians, my Aborigines. You know we love you long time. Gina, any final words? You have 10 seconds.
Take care of yourselves, guys. These weeks are going to be emotionally taxing. We're still dealing with a pandemic. So please, please, please remember to take care of yourselves. That's all I have to say. The rest,
Brilliant.
God willing, will work it out.
I noted 400 said, love your hair. I was about to say thank you, and I realized it's certainly not for me. So take care, guys.
Hey, that is still a style, okay? That is
Oh,
still
yeah,
a style.
yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. Take care. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye, dear.
Bye, Eddie. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.